Welcome to Coffee and Keys, where we blend our expertise and personal experiences to unlock your awareness of the real estate industry.
They're the best.
Here they are.
And now, here's your hosts, Darlene Kemp and Jacques.
We're back.
Here we are.
We're getting really good at this, aren't we? At least showing up. We're getting good at that too.
Yeah. It's so much fun. Yeah. If
It
they
is.
only saw what happens behind the scenes.
Oh my
right?
gosh, behind the scenes, I know. How long do we take to get ready to do this? What, a half day?
Get ready to get ready.
Yeah, get ready to get ready. Anyway, welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. And what a beautiful day we picked to it. I don't know, in November, it's so nice outside. I got the window open. The weather's great. Great weather for showing homes, right?
Hey, listen, I even decorated my house for Thanksgiving. Can you believe that? I mean, I know. I got the tablecloth out, the cloth napkins, the little turkey ring holders.
Nice. You didn't bring pictures. Well, of course, now you've got the house all decorated, right? So, I mean, all, what do we call it?
All falled up. It's all falled up because in about 2 weeks you swing into Christmas.
So you remodeled, so now you have to decorate for the seasons, right?
You
This
do.
is part of that whole thing, right?
Well, I'm going to go on record and say that my husband told me that there was room for improvement when it comes to that in our household.
Oh, well, at least you don't have to stage it for sale every day.
That is true. That is true. So with that being said, I've been busy. You've been busy. I've been out showing homes. You've been out doing the loans.
Really?
And so what's the typical question that we get this time of year?
Yeah, this time of year, is it really a good time to buy a home?
I get that question without prompt from every buyer. And I get that question without prompt from every seller, meaning, is this a good time to list my home?
Yeah. So is it a good time to buy or is it a good time to sell?
Yes.
So that'll be one we're going to
we're gonna approach that.
Yeah. So, that, and, I guess, maybe the difference in when is a good time to buy or sell, what really is, everybody's talking about a buyer's market or seller's market and how that changes, things like that.
Yeah.
So, I guess which one do you want to handle first? Do you want to tell us what a buyer's market is and what a seller's market is and what that means?
So a buyer's market is when your supply exceeds the demand of the buyers. So you have more homes on the market and less buyers. And of course, a seller's market is the opposite of that.
Right. So in a buyer's market, the sellers are competing for the buyer, so they have to be very competitive and offer things like closing cost and
maybe
the houses are on the market, they take a lot longer to sell. I know when I got into the market many years ago, I won't say my age, but houses were minimum 6 months to sell, right?
Yeah.
6 months. Sellers were having to pay all closing cost and everything for the buyers. We were having to be very competitive because at that time we had some assumptions we did. We were doing pretty much anything that we could think to do to try to get a seller's home sold.
Right.
And in today's world, it's just the opposite, right?
But that the homes aren't on the market. At least my listings aren't on the market 6 months. Gosh, I am the first one to tell my seller, if your house is on the market 6 months, you need a new agent. I do. I tell them that.
And that's because it is now a seller's
It's
market.
a seller's market. It's a seller's market now.
Which means there's more buyers out there for every house on the market than there's houses available.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So historically, this time of year, buyers are not out there historically. There are not as many buyers because, they're focusing on travel and spending the holiday with their families and buying Christmas gifts and preparing for the holidays and bedding down and, stuff like that. So, historically, you don't have that many buyers out there. And on the flip side, as a seller, historically, when a seller calls me in November and says, hey, I'm thinking about listing my house, when's the best time to list it? And I'm like, well, now, I mean, if you can. And they're like, well, I was thinking about waiting until March, the spring when the flowers are out and the house looks better, and, the grass is green. It doesn't always mean or always equate to you got the buyers out there too at the same time.
That's true. And when it comes, on the lender side, with somebody say, well, when's the best time to buy? And I would say now, because you know what the market is now. You don't know what the market's going to be or where the interest rates are going to be or any of that in the future, but you know what today is. So again, my answer would be, it's a great time to buy or sell when you're ready. When you need to buy or sell. Right.
Let's not wait. Let's do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's really not a whole lot of, seasonal, adjustments to when you're ready, right? If somebody has to move, they have to move, or especially if it's for work or transfer or things like that. So, wish we had a crystal ball. Could tell
we do not, people. I know they think, look, some of the questions that I get, I'm like, I know my name is Crystal, but I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot tell you what it's going to be like 3 months from now. Can't. Right. And anybody that's telling you that isn't telling you the truth. Right.
Because I know, so we'll kind of step back a minute too and say, okay, the buyer's market, seller's market, let's take a look at what it means, when we talk about the economy and what really runs the economy, when houses sell, when they don't sell, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that is, well, first of all, based on behavior, who's buying and who's selling and why, right? So that's usually the number one is, what's the fear factor behind buying or selling? But number two is supply and demand, right?
That's the simple answer, and it's the true answer.
Talk to any economist, it's the supply and demand that's going to determine price, right?
Right.
And how many houses are out there. And we've definitely seen some changes in supply and demand over the time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's go back to 2020. No, 2019, 2020. Let's go. And that's comparatively speaking, then and now. I mean, 2019, 2020, and we call it the COVID era. Right. Before we knew what COVID was, we just knew people were getting sick, people were dying, people were afraid. We got locked in our homes. I was on my couch with a bowl of popcorn and peanut M&Ms mixed in it, watching movies, thinking
that you're going.
I think I've sold my last house because we didn't know how long we were going to be there.
Right.
And
yeah. And then come to find out that all those people that were stuck in their houses started to look around a lot.
Looking around.
And now, wait a minute, I'm also working from home in a lot of cases. So a lot of the workers went remote. So now they had to use a space in their home as an office. And they're going, whoa, wait a minute. This house is way too small.
Right. All of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. No, because the kids were being taught at home.
Yeah.
By their parents. So you had 3 or 4 kids running around. Your office is on your bed. How many times? Because we did a lot of Zoom and FaceTime as agents back then. So the longer people were in their house, the more they started looking around saying, I think I need a bigger house.
Yeah.
Or
a little bit.
Yeah. So then now we're getting the calls, hey, I want to buy another house. Well, how hard was it for us to get in a house? I remember, the standard thing was sellers leave the doors, slightly ajar, so that we don't have to touch the handles to look in the closet, so you're doing it with your elbow, opening it. Sellers wouldn't let buyers in the house. They would only let the agents in there, trying to minimize, the germs that are being carried. That are being carried throughout the house. So my buyer's outside, I'm in the house with turtlenecks and mask and gloves and FaceTiming inside the house while my buyer's out there, on the phone. Well, can you go back to the closet? Can you open the closet? Is there a way you can take it from that angle and stuff like that? So
you did whatever needed to be done, right?
But consequently, because people are at home, the demand was higher than a supply at that point.
And there was a lot of things that were affecting the supply, right? Because we building almost came to a halt because remember the supply issues.
Cost.
They couldn't get the wood, and they couldn't get the anything that they needed to build the house. Building pretty much came to a halt. So you're definitely behind, in the supply of homes for as many people that need homes that are looking for homes. So you've got high demand because people had been pent up so much and they were really wanting to go ahead and buy. And then the supply had just dropped to nothing. No new houses were coming on the market. Construction pretty much came to a halt. It kind of, got us behind, and changed that supply and demand for housing. So that obviously also changed supply and demand has a direct effect on price.
Oh, yeah. Right? Oh, gosh. And competition.
Yeah.
The competitive. So the sellers, the one thing that I noticed during that time, because I carried, I carry a lot of listings. I'm pretty even across the board, but I do have a lot of listings that I carry. So these are people that I sold homes to 5 years before, right? Okay. All of a sudden the house is redone. Because they were sitting in the house. So they're over there, redoing their bathrooms and doing, beautiful conference on the walls and, shiplap and all of that, coffered ceilings. And I'm like, is this the same house I sold you 4 years ago? I'm looking at it like, so because the house was redone, guess what? It created the demand by the buyers, the homes that went on the market. The buyers want that house that's redone, and they were willing to compete for it.
Compete and pay for it.
And pay for it.
Yeah. And so when you talk about I've got a chart that we'll kind of just share real fast here. But it really kind of shows what happened to sales prices, right?
Yes. Oh, there you go. So, beautiful.
The average sales price. Okay, this little gray area right here is called
Looks
COVID.
Like my heart rate.
Yes, that's right. They always say nothing really goes in the straight line, but what's the trend here? What happens to the average sales price over time? Mm-hmm. Right? It's a great investment. 9 out of 10 times. And, we can see even during the crash where it was, the housing bubble burst, even that, we're way past that now, right? Yeah. And so this other little gray area here is called COVID. All the little gray areas are part of a little recession. But in the third, let's see, if you look at the second quarter of 2020, let's see if I can go back anymore here. Yeah, so let's see, COVID started I think the first case was November, December 2019. Yeah, so January 2020, they started really coming out with it, and it went out from there. Well, in the second quarter of 2020, the average sales price was $371,100, right? Mm-hmm. And then look what happened after that, So the second quarter of 2021, it's already up to $428,000. And about that time, isn't that when you were seeing like sales prices of $10,000 above ask price? So for every listing, how many buyers did you have in that listing, or how many contracts did you get? Oh my gosh!
Let's talk maybe 8 hours on the market. On the average, 10 offers.
Yeah,
I mean, I had a spreadsheet. When I get multiple offers, I have a spreadsheet that I chart everything for my seller. Just, quick glance. You don't have to go through every single line of the contract, but these are the highlights of the contract. Mm-hmm. So during COVID, and I think on my spreadsheet, there's 6 homes to one sheet, right? I would have like 4, 5, 6 sheets to one home that I'm trying to go through. Yes, it was crazy. Figure out what's the best offer. Yeah. What's the best offer? It was crazy, but everybody was outbidding each other financially,
Right. And and of course, as a lender, we're going to lend on the lower of the sales price or the appraised value.
That's right.
So people were offering $10,000 above the appraised value, So when that one closed, guess what happened to the next appraisal? They were using that as
they
a
were
comp, and it
using
really
that
got
one
the price
to go up.
So, for those of you, and a lot of people were saying, oh my God, I would never have somebody, pay $10,000 above the appraised value. Well, it's relative when you're looking for a house, because it really is about what's best for you. Do you have the down payment money? Can you afford the monthly payment? And well, by the way, what were the interest rates then?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm sitting in a house now that I got that interest rate back then, which is a beautiful thing,
So the all-time low interest rate, I think was in January 2021 of 2.65%.
Yeah.
So they may have been paying $10,000 above appraised value, but look at that interest rate that they were given. And then let's see what happens to housing after that. So by the time you hit the second quarter in 2022, you were up to $499,300. So they've done making back easily. And they got that lower interest rate, because then if you go back to, let's see, October, of 23, let's see that third quarter 2022, and then go back to the third quarter of 2023, you're up to $521,000, and interest rates are now 7.79.
Oh, I know. So you're paying so much more.
Yeah. So what did it really cost somebody who waited until the time was right?
Yeah.
Right? You just never know. You don't have a crystal ball. You don't really know where the market's going to go. But if you look at the history of this average sales price, when somebody asks, when's a good time to buy a house?
It's always now. It's always now.
Now, yeah.
These people, the buyers that competed for these homes back then, and say on the average, and I don't know if you see that trend, because you see way more contracts than I write. So you have multiple agents that hand you contracts, where I'm only one agent that writes these contracts. But the typical buyer and the typical seller thinks in 5s and 10s. Usually that price ends with a 5 or a 0. And that buyer, when they make an offer, it usually ends in a 5 and a 0. So the typical, when a buyer went over, thinking that they're doing, like, I'm really going to pull this out, I'm doing the right thing, there's usually like $10,000 normally. Yeah. Okay, so $10,000 over the asking price, and they did what we call a guarantee, which means, regardless, it depends on how it's written, but regardless on what the price is, I'm going to give you $10,000 over that.
Right. And keep in mind, as a lender, I'm only going to lend on the lower of the sales price or the appraised value. So that buyer had to come up with that in cash. They could not be financed. Correct.
But prices were moving so fast that by the time that they closed, they gained the equity in the house. So they made their money back before they even closed.
Yeah. Yeah. In most cases. And again, that's a lot of it's based on supply and demand, and housing starts have definitely been down, and there's more people that want housing now than, before. So houses now, we think it's calmed down a little bit, right? We're really not seeing that as much today.
Has it calmed down? Yes. It's still competitive out there. I've had buyers that competed, recently, and then I have some that haven't, competed. So before, during COVID, everything was a competition. It was a great time to be a listing agent.
And to get anybody, the poor buyers who were hoping to get a little bit of closing costs. Remember, when it's a seller's market, the seller doesn't have to do anything to attract the buyers, except for put the house on the market and make it look pretty for a day.
Yes, exactly.
And then they could sell the house. They didn't have to offer closing cost assistance. They were just hoping that, if they listed it at a good price, that maybe the excitement of multiple offers would increase their price there. So the poor buyers who didn't have, enough closing costs, and they were trying to get the seller to pay some closing costs, they were just out of the market.
They were out of the market.
It was tough. It was tough. But that's changed a little bit. I will say, from some contracts I've seen, I've actually seen some contracts come in. And again, I'm not saying every seller is going to do it, because it's still a very competitive market. But I've seen where they've raised the sales price to help cover some closing costs. And I've seen where, so it's not as fast and furious. So,
but it's still out there.
It's still out there. But So is now a good time to buy then? It's calmed
Yes.
down a little bit. You're not having to go that, so much money out of pocket. So if you were sitting on the sidelines waiting for that frenzy to stop, I think it's a perfect time to give it a shot, right?
It doesn't stop. I don't think I've ever seen it stop, because even though it's slow now, and again, it depends on the area, because you have some areas that are in more demand than other areas of the, the cities.
And it really depends on the
states.
house, because what we're seeing is that the really ones that show nice and look nice or in great shape are the ones that are going fast with multiple offers.
Yes.
The ones that take a little more visualization from a buyer, they're on the market a little bit longer.
They
or
are.
They might have to be a little enticing and offer those closing costs to get those houses sell. So I think the house has everything to do with it too.
I mean, recently I've gotten closing costs for the buyers that need it. If they don't need it and you want it, that's a discussion that we have. It depends on how much. My standard question is, well, how much do you love the house?
Yeah.
Because we can play the game all day long, but you might lose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always say, if you need the closing costs and you don't have it, then the seller's not willing to negotiate it there, then you just move on to the next one. And I've always found that you can get it. But it's just a little easier in today's world than it was with that market that was a frenzy. Yeah. So I think it's a great time, to buy. And then we've got these people that are going, well, wait a minute, how can you say it's a great time to buy? What were the interest rates then?
Tell us what the interest rates were in the 80s. I mean, tell us that, because not that you were around. Were you around in the 80s?
I was.
So and for the people that don't know, Darlene used to be an agent, right? Years and years ago.
I started out in the industry as a real estate agent back in the mid 80s. Okay. And it was a buyer's market then, which means most listings were on the market for at least 6 months. And we had to be very competitive. The sellers were having to pay all closing costs. And we actually were doing creative financing. We had no qualifying assumptions, and we were doing wrap mortgages. We were just doing whatever it took to try to get a buyer into a house because they wanted to buy. But I mean, look at the interest rate chart here, right? So, when you think about it, we were up to, let's see, in November 6, 1981, interest rates were 18.37%.
Gosh,
Can
that's
you
a
imagine?
Credit card now.
Yeah. And people are like, going haywire over 7. And then when I got into the market, it was around 13%, and people were going, oh my God, interest rates are awesome. They're 13%.
Yeah.
Because they just came down from 18, right? And then they slowly went down from there. So, but again, it didn't go in a straight line. It kind of went down, came back up a little bit, and then kind of continued to go down. So if you look across the board, that average interest rate during that time frame was still above 6%.
Yeah.
Still above, around to 8. It wasn't until really let's see, I think one of the lowest ones, 2021, it finally got down to 6.5%. And I remember I was in mortgages by that time. And I remember going, oh my goodness, we're never going to see rates like this again. They're never going to go any lower.
And then there was COVID.
Well, before that, there was the crash in the bubble.
There
in the
was
market,
the bubble burst.
Yeah, which is, again, that was a perfect storm in the industry. Too much money.
Right.
Too many houses. People weren't buying one house. They were buying 2 and 3 houses.
What was the lending practices too?
Absolutely. No qualifying or,
no
100% financing.
Paper.
And then you had things like pay option arms. And, it was just a different frenzy, different world. But that came to a halt really fast. But even right after that time frame, then interest rates started to come down a little bit, the 5s, the 4s, right? And then, to try to get the economy back up and running again, they were subsidizing some of those mortgage bonds to, keep that interest rate low. So, in all honesty, I really don't see where we're going to see those types of interest rates again, but
we don't have a crystal ball.
I don't have a crystal ball.
We can hope for them.
Yeah. But if you really look across the board, people are going, oh my gosh, interest rates are so high. But if you really look at that average, it's really not that high. Right. But it's a very, what we call volatile market, a little up, little down, little up, little down, So, the great thing about the mortgages though is if you get a house and the interest rate's a little bit higher and they come down, guess what you can do? You can always refinance. But if you bought a house and all of a sudden the prices go way up, there's not much you can do about that part, right? You've just gotten some equity if you bought it. And if you didn't, you're going to pay more for the house. So
we always say, marry the house and date the rate.
Yeah, because you can always refinance the rate at a later time if you need to, right?
Which brings your payments down. But at least you're in the house.
At least you're in the house.
That you love.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I get the question all the time, like you get the question, is it a good time to buy or sell, right? So I get the question, of, should I lock in the rate? And my question is, if you like it, lock it, because I don't have a crystal ball, and the market changes very quickly right now. And if you're approved and qualified to your max and the interest rate goes up, it could go up past what you qualify for. Yeah. So I always say, if you like it, lock it, then just don't look back.
Yeah, exactly.
Just close it out. And then if it's lower, 6-7 months after you're in that property, and you can, look at, doing just a rate and term, streamlined type refinance, then that's easy enough to do. But at least you're in the market and you found the house that you love. And, so is it a good time to buy? Yes. Is it a good time to lock it in? Yes. Always.
Well, you're very good at watching the market. I mean, you have a couple of my buyers now, that you'll watch and you'll say, hey, look, interest rate, especially if it's not locked yet. And then you have buyers that are savvy enough to know what that means. Most buyers don't know what that means, and that's where we come in as professionals. But then you have some people that do follow that and say, don't lock me yet. Don't lock me yet. And you don't, but then you'll call, you're good at watching the market, and you'll call me and say, hey, look, the interest rates went up twice, and your buyer doesn't want me to lock. So, we kind of just work as a team at that point.
Yeah, definitely. And really that rate lock in is, again, we always say we give them the information and it's their choice. However, if they ask my opinion, I always tell them it goes up a lot faster than it comes back down. And if you like it today and you're comfortable with your payment, I can tell you where mortgage bonds are trading right now. It could change an hour from now. Somebody could go out there and say something and entice some fear in investors, or anything could happen, and the market will turn on a dime. And it turns sometimes so fast that it doesn't give us time to lock it in as we see it going up. So I am a big believer that if you like it today, it's good to lock it in. It's like if you find a house that you like, go for it. Today's always good. Why are you waiting until January, February, March? You don't know where the industry will be at that time frame. If you need to buy or you need to sell, it's always a good time. It depends on what works best for you. Why are you buying? Why are you selling? Those are the questions you really need to ask. Right. Do you have to move? By what time do you have to move? What's going to happen if you can't move? What's going to happen if you can't sell your house? Can you afford 2 payments if you have to transfer out of the area, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons. And I think the biggest question that we ask is, what are you looking for? What's most important to you? Is it cash out of pocket? Is it, your monthly payment? Or you would say, what's most important to you? Is it how fast you sell? Is it getting the highest dollar? Or is it the less inconvenience? I mean,
what's the motivation behind it?
Yeah. And then usually that motivation, like we talked before, is very behavioral, very emotional.
Yes.
Properties, as we were talking with Jill and getting the houses ready to sell, emotion is really what handles or that's what's really going to get somebody to move or to make an offer, is something that's emotionally gets them excited about it. So,
I mean, the motivation is not always money. I've learned that because even during the very highly competitive time of COVID, I pushed a lot of buyers into a house because a lot of buyers that didn't have the money to compete. But my question to the other agent, the co-op agent, is, well, what's the motivation behind the seller? Why are they selling?
Why are they selling?
What's important to them? Because if we can match that or do better, we're going to.
Yeah. And some of them are going to, and I can remember some of them were, well, I still have to go find a house and I can't make an offer on another house until I have my house sold. And some of them would accept your offer just because you were given them 30 days
Yes.
after closing for free so that they can go out and write an offer on their house and not have to move twice.
How many
so there's
times?
a lot of motivation on that. Yeah.
How many times did I say to you, Darlene, I don't know how we won this one?
Yeah, but it's because that's all a part of negotiation, is creating that win-win, right?
Yes.
So I think that's a little bit powerful too, is that you ask the right questions to give a win-win to both the buyer and the seller. And that, but I'm kind of glad the frenzy is calming a little. We still have a housing shortage, right? We still have a housing shortage. We still have supply and demand. We're still busy.
You're busy. I'm busy.
Yeah. So, thank goodness.
Yeah, I know, right? Because if we're not, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we've definitely been on that roller coaster ride, and 2025 is right around the corner. Can you believe that?
I know. I can't believe we're at the end of the year. Gosh.
I know. Especially when it's still like 70 degrees outside in November. Have the window open. It's beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I would say just, is it a good time to buy or to sell? There's really no right or wrong answer, right? It's really just what's best for you.
What's best for you. But don't try to create that crystal ball.
Right.
My answer is always the same and I get that, especially this time of year, I get that question. Every buyer, every seller. Is it a good time to list? Is it a good time to buy? It always is. Right now is always the best time because you never know what's going to happen. There isn't anybody out there that can tell you what's going to happen next month. Yeah. We can tell you historically what happens next month, but that doesn't mean that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely saw that with COVID changes and things like that. It kind of took away the seasonal adjustments. The summer wasn't as crazy as it normally is. And now with people, doing school at home and working from home, the time of year is not as important on when they move as it used to be. So we're going to see some changes.
That's another topic. That's true. Because it's funny, strategically, a listing agent will list a home on Thursday because your buyers are they get off work on Friday if they're looking for a house. If they're in the market, they get off work on Friday, and that's when the showings start. Friday night through the weekend.
Especially in the wintertime, because our sunlight is kind of
that's right,
limited.
But since COVID, more and more people work from home now. There's a lot of my clients that were working from home that their companies have pushed them back into offices. But they work from home. I know my husband was in an office and he's not anymore. I mean, he works from wherever he wants to work. But because of that, now the showings, you get a showing on Monday afternoon at noon or at 1 or 2 when historically you didn't. I mean, everybody's at work. So again, if you're going to list now because the buyers are out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, waiting, because you never know, as, our economy comes back to a more whatever normal is, right? Whatever that normal is.
Well, we don't know what that is anymore.
Catch up with the, with the building demand and with the housing demand. And, when that happens, we might see it go back into a buyer's market. You just never know. But right now, I would say, it's a good time to buy or sell. The question is, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Yeah. How do you?
Yeah, I'm anxious to know
what's most important to you.
I get excited to see what the next year is going to be like. Yeah. Is it going to be a frenzy? With all the real estate changes and the market changes for 24 alone for 2024, I still think we have a fairly good market.
I agree. Yeah.
And
even if you look at this interest rate history chart, people bought houses at all those times, So don't let that influence you or put you off. Now, if interest rates go up, you may not qualify for as much as they do when they're lower.
So you can get priced out of the market.
So you can get priced out of the market, right? Mm-hmm. So those are one things that you can think of what will happen if the interest rates do go up. And so that could be a thing. But, there's still some creativity out there. we still have assumptions, although you have to qualify for them. So that, I mean, think about how many people had really low interest rates if they were VA or FHA loans. Some of those loans are assumable. You just have to pay somebody their equity. And we talked about, what is your equity, right? See what happened here and what happened. Well, actually, let's go. So your price here versus your price there, that's a whole lot of equity somebody has to have.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of cash out of pocket for those. But, there's still a lot of possibilities. So I just say, we're here to kind of educate everybody to find out what is, what's most important to them and how we can make it work, because we believe in real estate, always have, that it's always a good time to buy and it's always a good time to sell. And it's just a matter of figuring out, what's important to somebody and being able to fulfill that need. Right.
I have like a few buyers back in 2023 when interest rates were in the 2s, and they slowly crept up to the 3s and they hit the 4s. But when they hit the 4s, these people are like, well, you know what? My father, my friend, my mother, whoever said that we should wait until interest rates go back down. Yeah. This is 2024. We're going into 2025. Will we see the 2s again? Don't know. I couldn't tell you.
And you have to, if you really study what went behind the scenes with mortgage bonds and the fact that, they were, purchasing mortgage bonds to try and keep those mortgage interest rates as low as possible. The thought that, you may never see that. And even though you're saying, I'm going to wait for interest rates to get lower, what's happening to the sales prices?
Right.
So what you save in rate, you're going to spend in cost.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So, I still believe that 6 and 7% is a great interest rate, especially since I've been in this, where the market was 13 and we thought it was awesome because it came down from 18. Those are the days I'm hoping we won't see anytime soon. But, because then you talk about affordability, it definitely would be an issue at that point. But I wouldn't let the interest rates now delay you from getting into a home.
Don't wait, people. Yeah, don't wait until the interest rate goes down. Yeah. Because again, marry the house and date the rate.
You can always
change that rate.
I do want to halt on that one, because I remember during the housing bubble, one of the things I always told everybody is you never guarantee that somebody can refinance, because in order to refinance, you still have to qualify.
Right.
You still have to have good credit, and the house may still have to appraise depending on the type of loan that you get.
Right.
So you never want to rely on that refinance. But if you like it now, don't let the interest rate hold you back, because if it does go down, there's still a possibility you can turn around and refinance that.
Well, the thing is, and I don't know the true, I know my clients about how long they're in a house, but even the people that purchased a home from me, because we were actually having this conversation, you and I, just recently. I'm in the cycle now from 3 to 4 years ago when I sold them their house. Now they're putting them on the market. That's been this year, a lot of those. And that's because a lot of my clients are military. So they cycle out after 3 years, usually they're moving to another state. So even 3 years ago in the high, they were competing. A lot of them competed. But when I list the house now, they're not upside down. They're still taking home money after they sell their house. Right. So it just goes to show you how much the home prices have increased over the last 3 years.
Right. And you never know when you're going to kind of see that again. We're hoping, you can see here, again, the gray area was that, COVID recession area there where we did see a little bit of loss, but not drastically. And then it shot up right from there. As soon as it came out of that area, I mean, they really leveled off a little bit and went back up again. And, so we're going to see, we're definitely seeing a little bit of that leveling off right now, but we're not seeing any type of loss, even though people are paying so much more than that.
They're taking home money. Every single one of them are taking home money. So even, they paid higher interest rate, 3%, 4%, which some of them are like, 4% interest rate, but their equity, their home value increased.
Right. Right. Yeah. You definitely see, that swing there on the average sales price from 2017. And then if you look right there from the interest rate as well, that's from 2019. Again here. So the rates again are, nothing really, it's never a straight line, right? It's never straight up, straight down.
Well, I'm telling you,
you're going to have some volatility.
Are you sure you don't have my EKG on that? Yeah, exactly.
And you remember when the news went all crazy that, oh my gosh, interest rates had fallen. Yeah.
But
that didn't last very long.
It didn't last long. I even called you, hey, Darlene, I saw in the news that interest rates have gone down.
By the time we saw it in the market, it was already coming back up, right?
Yeah.
And again, those people that I said, lock it. Because there's some of them going, wait a minute, it came down. How much lower is it going to go? Right. And somebody told me a long time ago that, pigs get slaughtered. So if you wait, you never know where the bottom is. You never know where the top is. You just want to make sure, is it right for me? Is this something that I can do now? Is this going to satisfy my housing need? Is this going to satisfy my financial budget? Is this going to, you always want to ask the question, is it good for me now? And if it is, there's no wrong answer. Right.
That you are correct.
No wrong answers. So it's whatever's right for you.
I guess to wrap this up, when is the best time to buy? When is the best time to list? Now.
As long as you're ready.
As long as you're ready.
As long as you're ready, especially in the financial world, when you're ready. And then when you find that house, right? When you're ready.
When you're ready. Well, that's a great podcast.
I like it.
I love this topic because it's funny because it's not discussed, in depth too much because, I'm like, I know what the next question, I go, my buyer goes, I got a question for you. And I'm like, I know what the question's going to be, but you go ahead and ask. Well, is this a good time to buy?
And now you know why they say that. It's always a good time.
It's always a good time.
Yeah, just because if it's right for you, it's a good time.
Yep.
So, and we definitely believe in homeownership, and as long as you've got everything worked out with what your needs are, now's the time.
Now's the time. Wow.
So, good podcast.
Yes.
Now we got to think about what our next
I think we're going to have a guest on our next one, aren't we?
Right.
Yes.
We're actually going to go off the residential subject just a little bit, right? We're going to talk a little bit. So our guest is actually going to talk a little bit about commercial
real estate, which I cannot.
Lending, but yeah.
I can't speak from that, folks. I am residential, so I'm excited because I have a million questions for him.
Right. So if anybody out there doesn't understand what a commercial real estate is, join us for the next podcast.
Yes.
We'll all learn something.
Yeah, for real, huh? All right. Well,
awesome.
It's been good seeing you.
On to the next one.
On to the next one.
Oh.
I think that's a little bit groovier.
Coffee and Keys is brought to you by Darlene Kemp, VP, Senior Loan Officer, NMLS ID 173897. Atlantic Coast Mortgage, LLC is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 643114. www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. And Crystal Jacques, Realtor for both RE/MAX Allegiance, 4000 Virginia Beach Boulevard, Suite 164, Virginia Beach, Virginia 23452. Office phone 757-490-7300. And RE/MAX Professionals, 20,241 North 67th Avenue, Suite A1 Glendale, Arizona 85308. Office phone 623-362-3000. Each office is independently owned and operated and supports the Fair Housing Act and Equal Opportunity Housing.